The trial for former LSU Tiger Charles Scott is underway in Gonzales this afternoon. Officers arrested Scott in November of 2011 after an 18-year-old girl accused him of rape at his Prairieville home. Prosecutors argued in opening statements today that Scott served the alleged victim alcoholic beverages at Bogey's Bar on the night in question. They say she was later having sex with a mutual friend of hers and Scott's, but when the friend left to go to the bathroom, Scott came in and started forcefully having sex with her. Meanwhile, the defense argues there's no physical or scientific evidence showing Scott had intercourse with the accuser. The alleged victim has been on the stand since 10 this morning. If found guilty, Scott faces up to 10 years in prison.
A former LSU star is on trial accused of raping a teenage girl. The case against Charles Scott began this morning in Gonzales, and it didn't take long to see the emotions behind the charges. NBC 33's David Lippman shows us how both sides are making their arguments.
Charles Scott was one of the best running backs in LSU history, but now he's a rape suspect, charged with 1 count of sexual battery. He met the alleged victim in November 2011 at a bar, went with her and a mutual friend back to someone else's house. The woman and her friend had sex, but when the friend left the room, she claims Scott entered and had sex with her against her will.
When you look at this case, I mean, obviously these are very serious charges that have been leveled against my client.
The alleged victim, who was 18 at the time, took the stand as soon as the opening statements were finished. She told the judge that Scott claimed to be the other man to trick her into sex. She said she was drunk at the time, but quickly realized it was Scott and told him to stop, but he refused. Some of the questions about her memory made her angry, and she was clearly uncomfortable having to retell her story in such graphic details. The defense tried to prove that she was too drunk to understand what was happening and that Scott didn't do it. They said the scientific evidence would prove that Scott never had sex with her.
We're not coming in to defend this case based on some kind of a slick technicality. What we're doing is we're addressing the facts, and we intend to address the facts. And at the end of this case, I feel confident my client's going to be found innocent of the charges.
Scott's lawyers asked to have a judge rule on the case rather than a jury. They said they didn't think he would get a fair trial because he's both a celebrity and because he still looks to be 5'11", 240 pounds.
Well, it's so much attention that's addressed, and people come to so many conclusions about professional athletes. You know, they see the headlines, and you read the headline, and people automatically conclude that he's guilty.
Scott spent parts of 2 years in the NFL. If he's found guilty, he could spend up to 10 years in prison. In Gonzales, David Lippman, NBC 33 News.
And David tells us the alleged victim has also filed a civil suit against Scott, but she said today that she did not know he was a pro athlete that night.
Thank you, Jesse. The time is 5:02, and the sexual battery trial against former LSU running back Charles Scott continues today in Gonzales, with the lead investigator in the case taking the stand. 24-year-old Scott is accused of raping a woman in November of 2011 after impersonating another man at his Prairieville home. The accuser, who was 18 years old at the time, testified for several hours Tuesday morning. She said she met Scott at Bogey's Bar near LSU, and the bar allowed Scott to mix and serve her drinks all night long. She says she went home with one of Scott's friends and did have consensual sex with that man, but when the friend left to use the bathroom, Scott got into bed with her. Scott's lawyers say there's zero physical or scientific evidence to back up those rape claims.
We're not coming in to defend this case based on some kind of a slick technicality. What we're doing is we're addressing the facts, and we intend to address the facts. And at the end of this case, I feel confident my client's going to be found innocent of the charges.
Charles Scott played football for LSU from 2006 to 2009 and is one of the best running backs in LSU history. Still 7th all-time in yards and 4th in touchdowns. He faces up to 10 years in jail if found guilty of sexual battery. The woman has also filed a civil suit against him and Bogey's Bar, but told a judge she didn't know Scott was a pro athlete until after the alleged incident.
Tonight at 9.
Day 2 and a verdict in the sexual battery case against former LSU Tiger Charles Scott.
Now on WBXH, this is 9 News Extra.
And we begin tonight with breaking news: not guilty. That is the verdict that has come back tonight for ex-LSU star running back Charles Scott. He was on trial, charged with sexual battery. Now, this is Scott's jubilant family just moments ago as they sprang out of court, applauding and hugging each other. Scott remained calm and composed as he had throughout the past several days of what was very graphic testimony in Gonzales court. The charges stem from an incident involving a then 18-year-old woman in November of 2011. New at 10, Cheryl Mercedes speaks with Scott's mother. That's new at 10.
Live from the capital city in high definition, this is WBRZ News 2 Louisiana.
Former LSU football star Charles Scott cleared of sexual battery. Good evening. Tonight, a judge found him not guilty in Ascension Parish.
She ruled there was not enough evidence to support a woman's claim she was attacked by Scott in his house. New at 10 o'clock, News 2's Ryan Nakan has the details on how the decision was made. He was in the courtroom in Gonzales when the verdict was read.
It didn't take long after closing arguments for a judge to render a verdict of not guilty against Charles Scott for sexual battery.
I just thank God, man, it's all over with, and like my attorney said, I'm just ready to move on with my life and, get over my career.
Scott's family screamed out in the courtroom when Judge Jessie LeBlanc read her verdict. The judge said testimony from the prosecution's witnesses, including the woman who accused Scott of rape, was inconsistent and contradictory. And she said the DNA evidence did not prove Scott's guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. Evidence showed the accuser's DNA was found on Scott's genitals, but the defense poked holes in that evidence after the DNA analyst said having DNA on a person doesn't necessarily mean Scott and his accuser had sex. The defense also revealed that Scott's DNA and the woman's DNA gathered that night were analyzed in the same working area on the same day at the same time, meaning possible contamination.
Well, the facts were going to speak for themselves. We were not going to base this case on a technicality, and we were going to present the facts, and we were going to make the facts for the judge to decide.
Outside of the courtroom, the district attorney said it was one of the hardest things he had to do to tell the accuser that Scott was going to be let free, and there was nothing that he could do about it. Now, the accuser's mother did talk to our cameras afterward, and she said that the family does plan to file a civil lawsuit against Scott. In Ascension Parish, Ryan Nakan, WBRZ, Balanced News.
Scott was on trial for a lesser charge than the one he was originally accused of committing.
Tonight at 6.
The Gonzales Police Department is headed to court over a high-speed chase that caused this deadly crash.
This is new at 6. A lawyer's taking the Gonzales Police Department to court over a deadly high-speed chase involving 2 reported shoplifters. This suit alleges that the department and one of its officers broke the law. Our Cheryl Mercedes was there when that suit was filed this afternoon.
The images depicting the aftermath of a high-speed pursuit down Highway 30 are hard to forget. In December of last year, Gonzales police officer Brent Amy had reportedly been chasing 2 alleged shoplifters from the Tanger Outlet Mall into St. Gabriel when this head-on collision happened between the suspects in the PT Cruiser and Warren Porta III in the Toyota Tundra. Attorney Andre Gaucher, who is representing Porta, says it turned his client's life upside down.
He's simply driving down the road following all the rules and regulations and laws of the state of Louisiana, and all of a sudden he comes upon a NASCAR race that is in the middle of a crash.
Gaucher has filed a lawsuit against Officer Amy and the Gonzales Police Department, citing the high-speed chase across parish lines was unnecessary and endangered the public.
He had their identity. He was running background checks on them. He knew that they were driving a purple 2002 Chrysler PT Cruiser.
According to the lawsuit filed Wednesday afternoon in Iberville Parish, audio recordings reveal that Officer Brent Amy advised the Gonzales Police Department that he was chasing the PT Cruiser at speeds of about 90 miles per hour.
Where you're passing in curves, you're reporting to dispatch that you're going in the do-or-die lane at 90 miles an hour. Why do you have to do that?
Gaucher says while the officer made a bad decision, he also blames the police department for allowing it to happen. The lawsuit alleges the agency neglected to do a great deal of things, including failed to order Officer Amy to terminate the chase, permitted Amy to drive at an excessive speed, and failed to institute proper pursuit policy. Gaucher says he's filed suit to put an end to what he claims has become a big problem within the Gonzales Police Department. Cheryl Mercedes, WAFB 9 News.
Gonzales Police Chief Sherman Jackson declined to comment on the lawsuit, but he did say that Officer Amy has been with the department for at least 4 years now.
Tonight at 6.
A Sorrento police officer faces disciplinary action after being clocked speeding a number of times outside of town limits.
Now, from Louisiana's News Channel, this is 9 News at 6.
Hi, I'm Donna Britt.
And I'm Andre Morrow. There's an uproar about a cop in Sorrento, so much so that some people want him to turn in his badge.
A GPS in his police car registered Officer James Bell speeding more than 700 times, sometimes out of his jurisdiction. Our Cheryl Mercedes reports one woman is taking the town and the police chief to court.
Officer James Bell joined the ranks of the Sorrento Police Department last December. On September 2nd of this year, he was involved in a crash on Airline Highway. According to this report by state police, Officer Bell said he was attempting to catch up to a vehicle that was allegedly going 80 miles per hour in a 55-mile-per-hour zone. The pursuit ended when the officer slammed on his brakes, lost control of his police cruiser, and hit another car. According to the GPS in his unit, Bell was going 100 miles per hour when this happened. The woman in the other car who was injured has hired attorney Andre Gaucher.
The officer was just driving down the road at this crazy rate of speed.
According to the telematics or GPS records Gaucher requested for Bell's police car on that same afternoon, Bell's cruiser also reached speeds of 109 and 106 miles per hour in other instances. The report also shows from July 1st to September 3rd, Bell's unit was clocked going over 75 miles per hour 737 times, often outside of town limits.
You're driving above the speed limit in areas outside of your jurisdiction, so surely you're not chasing people outside of your jurisdiction, are you, officer?
Bell's boss, Police Chief Earl Terrio, says citizens speeding is a big problem in Sorrento, and his officers have cracked down hard.
75 and a 55, 90 and a 70, 68 and a 45.
The chief says Officer Bell has written well over 300 citations for speeding in the last 2 months, but he says there's no excuse for Bell's speeding.
Yes, he was wrong, and he was reprimanded for it.
We got Bell's disciplinary record from the Sorrento Police Department. In the 9 months he's been on the force, he's been reprimanded twice, only once for speeding. That write-up states due to the fact you were in a car accident with your unit SP5 on US 61 by Dollar General on September 2nd, 2013. And another write-up because he broke the law and parked in a handicapped parking spot in front of Dollar General. Residents are not happy, including Joshua Irvin, who says he recently got a speeding ticket from Officer Bell.
Why isn't he issued citations? How can he wrongfully issue civilian citations but doesn't uphold the same law for himself?
Chief Terrio says his hands are tied. Why isn't he on paid administrative leave?
That we don't have the manpower to do here.
Bell is one of only 5 officers on the Sorrento police force. Still, Gaucher says leaving Officer Bell on the road is putting the public in danger. He plans to sue the town and the chief.
727 violations? I think they should take him off the road before somebody gets killed.
Cheryl Mercedes, WAFB 9 News.
Chief Earl Terrio says he's reviewing the crash report and he'll bring the issue before the town council to consider the proper disciplinary action.
New at 10, a lawsuit in the case of this teacher accused of passing out steroids like protein bars.
What the investigative unit has learned and the new evidence in this case, that much more coming up tonight at 10 o'clock. Drugs are the center of a lawsuit against the Ascension Parish school system.
Parents say their kid's teacher was passing out steroids like protein bars, and the school system should have done more to protect the high school athletes. The former powerlifting coach at Donaldsonville High was arrested last year. Deputies say he gave a student steroids but told the student they were protein pills. He was arrested for possession with intent to distribute. The parents who sued talked to just one station, and News 2's Ryan Nakhan.
Curtis Aruta's resume is extensive and has high prestige. He worked as the director of strength and conditioning at Tulane. He was also an assistant in the same field at LSU before that. His fall from the collegiate level and from grace has the young boy's parents questioning if there's something Ceruta's past that the school district failed to catch.
At first, I couldn't figure what was wrong, but after that, after I noticed what he was on, I realized this is the problem.
These parents didn't want to make their identities public to protect their child, but they're not being shy about what they say their kid's coach did, using trust and authority to trick a high school powerlifter.
To do this to a child minor, and mine, especially my child, I couldn't believe that. It was just heartbreaking.
The family gave these text messages to WBRZ News 2. They say they're from Curtis Ceruta's phone to their child. It shows what deputies say Ceruta did, contacting the 15-year-old daily, telling him to take what he called amino acids. The child's mother found those pills, and her other child, who is a doctor, told her what the pills really were.
Promoting himself, not my child, because it's going to make him look good.
The student couldn't believe it. He could not believe that the coach had given him steroids under the pretense that they were protein pills.
The family's attorney says the fact that Ceruta snuck steroids to their son under the nose of administrators makes the school district at fault too.
You've got to ask yourself, what happened to this man? Why did he leave the collegiate ranks and end up at this high school? What was going on with the background check? How was he vetted? Who did they talk to? And these will be things that I'll find the answers to as this litigation progresses.
We went looking for Ceruta today. We found him at home.
Mr. Ceruta, my name's Ryan Nachman. I'm with WBRZ.
But he did not want to talk.
I can't say anything, sir.
Now, Ceruta no longer works with the Ascension Parish school system. The school district declined to talk about the lawsuit due to pending litigation. Ryan Nachman, WBRZ News 2.
Thank you, Ryan. Now, Ceruta will be in court next month on his criminal charges.